Welcome, everybody, in the Off the Ball Network fandom and beyond to your usual Monday Night Affairs, your favorite hockey and baseball topic covering podcast in the sports media landscape today. It is the Bunts and Bruises podcast here on the Off the Ball Network, live on Facebook right now, on Twitter, and on our YouTube as well. And as always, you're two, again, I hope we're two of your favorite hosts at this point. I certainly hope at least we're your favorites when it comes to the respective sports. But it is as proclaimed by my partner in crime here, the Iceman of the Off the Ball Network, the NHL guru, as they all love to call me. I'm technically calling myself this, but I will not claim the names. I just let the boys call me that. It is Jurg coming at you guys, ready to break down some hockey today. I am excited about all the hockey news that's been breaking up. But of course, a lot of stuff happened in the baseball world. And as always, joining me with it, the master GM when it comes to baseball talk, the Mike, I've called him the Mike Trout. I've called him the Shohei Ohtani of this show. You know, I got to think of more. I got to call this man one of the best of all time. He's the Babe Ruth of this show probably too. My partner in crime, James Barcia.
Jurg, you can't be like my friend calls me the Iceman. Own it. You're the Iceman. That's it. Say it's me, the Iceman. Let them know you're here. We're here. But of course, I'm excited, as you guys could tell, coming into the show, just dying of laughter. Jurg, funny guy you are. But regardless, like Jurg said, there's a lot going on this week. Craziest trade deadline, possibly the best trade deadline ever, because it was the most movement I've seen in God knows how long. It historically, statistically, might have been the most moves, because me and Jurg were here trying to figure out what trades to break down and which ones to mention. There was just so many going on that we had to cut it off like 2 days before the actual deadline. We're like, all these moves, we can't talk about all of them. We'd be here for the next 5 hours, which we would love to do, guys. But, you know, we got to
hold on. Which one of us has the editing software after this? Let's think about that for a second.
Well, I would love to do it. So, But regardless, guys, you already know how it is. We are here. We're winning. Make sure to check out my bookie, because my bookie matches up to 50% of your first deposit and up to $1,000. That's the largest bonus in the industry. It's the highest credit card acceptance rates, fast 48-hour payout processing, because, you know, everyone wants to get their money quick, Jurg. I ain't here waiting a week to get my money. I want it now. When you do that, guys, like I said, you get up to 50% on your first deposit, up to $1,000 when you use promo code Off the Ball. That, once again, that's promo code Off the Ball, and let's win big. Remember to do that, all right, guys? Come on.
And speaking of winning big or potentially losing big, NHL free agency began days ago, ladies and gentlemen, and already very quickly we have teams that have spent a good amount of cash. I will say right off the bat, before I kind of leave it to you, James, and any reactions you may have before I dive into everything, I was kind of surprised at some of the contracts that were actually given out early in free agency so far. I think the biggest thing to note of, and I think you're going to hear this on if you listen to a lot of hockey podcasts, I hope this one, of course, being number one, that I think a lot of people are going to be shocked at some of the money that's been thrown around, because I think in a year where with salary cap stagnation because of COVID, as well as next season, I don't think next season there's going to be a lot of movement in the cap at all. I think it's probably going to just stay around this the current 81.5. Maybe at best it goes to 82.5, maybe 83 if we're dreaming, but I don't see a big increase for next year as well. I think there wasn't a lot of high expectations going into this for big contracts to be handed out, and there were quite a few that were given. As kind of expected. There's always going to be contracts handed out to guys of, you know, pretty good cap hits, but just a few players here and there. Like I think in a few situations, people saw these moves and were like, really? He got that much? Huh. Okay. Didn't expect that this year. A lot of guys probably, I'm sure people thought it was going to be some more bridge deals, but hey, when the money's thrown right at you, you go after it, James. Like that's one thing we've always learned in free agency. It doesn't matter what everyone around you is saying. If I hand you a contract and I'm paying you X amount of money a year, like $4 million a year, it doesn't matter what other people say about you. You're like, I'll take the deal. Thank you very much. So that's one thing I could say about free agency so far. James, any reactions you've had from free agency?
From what I could see, because what I remember you telling me back in a couple episodes, you know, if you guys want to check it out, episode 4, episode 5, somewhere around there. But regardless, from what I've seen here, Jurg, is there was a lot of actually, if I'm counting right, once again, I'm not wearing my glasses, there was 5 actual contracts that were 6 or 7 years handed out. And from what I remember, you said contracts don't really get handed out like that anymore. So what about this year made them hand out all those long-term contracts? Because aside from those 5, you're seeing a lot more 2, 1, couple 4s, not really.
Yeah, so the thing with long-term deals is just a thing that teams like to do where in certain situations, in case the player becomes really good during the course of the contract, you want to have them on a very manageable cap number during the course of the deal. So that's one thing. Um, but then moving on from that, so let me go specifically on just this one deal real fast before I talk about the real winners and losers. Blake Coleman with the Calgary Flames, I believe, signed a 6-year deal worth I believe $4.9 million. It was about five. So about a 6-year, $30 million contract is what he got. A very, very pretty penny. And honestly, not the only Tampa Bay Lightning bottom six player that got a deal like that. Barclay Goodrow, whose rights were traded to the Rangers before the draft, he got a 6-year deal from the Rangers as well, worth something along the lines of like $20 million, like 20 something million dollars for him as well. I forget the exact number. It was between 20 to 24 mil. I apologize for that range. I just can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Like,
I'm gonna pull it up. Don't you worry.
Copy. This has become a thing in recent years with teams. Like, they love offering these bottom six players big contracts. So I guess from that perspective, so yes, Goudreau and Coleman were two of the guys. And then a couple of the things, like one thing that behooves a lot of teams is just signing guys to long-term deals. So the Edmonton Oilers did that with Zach Hyman. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail in just a few moments here about the Colorado Avalanche, but Colorado gave Gabriel Landeskog, the captain, a 8-year extension. They actually, this is a thing recently where they were the only team allowed to offer Landeskog an 8-year deal because obviously they were the team that drafted him and had him before. No team in free agency could have offered him 8. I think the max that they could have given is 7. This was a new thing that was implemented quite a while ago. I don't think it definitely wasn't in the recent collective bargaining. No, it was even way before that. So that's essentially what the deal is there. So that's why when it comes to the long-term deals, when I feel I could be wrong here, but I want to say when we think back to what I was talking about before, I was probably talking about like an Ilya Kovalchuk or Duncan Keefe or a Marian Hossa contract. Like those contracts were like 12 years, 13 years, 11 years. Alex Ovechkin, he re-signed with the Capitals this offseason. He just came off of what I think was definitely at least a decade-long deal, if not more. So those kinds of deals we're not going to see in the NHL ever again. But these kinds of deals, the 6-year deal, the 7-year deal, the 8-year deal with teams wanting to retain their guys, that's more than likely going to be happening. It was just maybe this year I was a little bit surprised because, again, in just some of these team situations, like I don't think 7 years, like that's a lot of term with these guys. And we've seen in recent free agency classes as well, James, like this isn't just something I'm projecting ahead. We've seen in recent free agency years, you give out these long deals, it comes back to bite you real quick. Like some of these guys that got these 6, 7, 8-year deals, they're not going to see the entire contract. They're just not.
So Barclay Goodrow, you were close, Jurg. It was, if not right on the money. He was 6 years, no pun intended. 6 years, 21 mil. 22 mil. It was more higher of 21.5 mil. So 22 mil.
But between 20 to 24, so smack them in the middle.
There you go, right there. Boom. That's the average. But so that makes a lot more sense. And yeah, we've seen it. Isn't that what happened with PK Subban and the Devils? His contract kind of tied them up. That's why they kind of want to get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, they were ultimately able to still make moves in free agency. I'm not going to mention this ultimately, but Dougie Hamilton got a very rich contract from the New Jersey Devils. I believe 7 years, $63 million for $9 million a year average cap hit. PK Subban, like this contract that stems from when he was in Montreal back when he signed it. And Montreal moved him, Nashville moved him, and now New Jersey's trying to move him. Like, again, this is why I talk about some of these deals, because these guys, they just don't age well. Like, look at the Shea Weber deal. Shea Weber may be retiring because of injuries, not seeing the whole contract through. Zach Parise and Ryan Suter were bought out. Like, it's just, these contracts just, man, like, you're playing with some fire with signing these long-term deals, James. You really are.
Sounds like your neighbor outside was playing with some fire, but of course you were. All right, Jerk. But speaking of playing with fire, you had some people who played with fire and they got a little burnt. Those are the losers. But of course, you had some people who were able to rise from the ashes, get that W, and they took care of their chickens and got some bread. So tell me, Jerk, who were the winners of free agency this year? So
my 3 winners, I will just say this: all my winners and losers are teams. I could have gone into specific players, but I didn't feel like that was necessary because I feel like a lot of for the most part, winners and losers on some of these are going to kind of match, except for some situations. So we're going to skip straight to the winners really fast. The first winner I have, the expansion, Seattle Kraken. They did pretty good in the draft, doing pretty good in free agency as well. I really like the signings of Jaden Schwartz and Alex Wenberg to those 2 contracts that they signed. $5.5 million average for Schwartz, for, I believe it's 5 years, and then Wenberg $4.5 million average for him for 3 years. Wenberg's coming off a career year in terms of goals scored, so they're going to hope that he can continue that. With some of the forwards that they've brought in, I think Wenberg can definitely have this kind of season again. He could put up some like 30, 40 point seasons in a Seattle Kraken uniform, so that's pretty good. And with what he showed last year, a potential 20 goal scorer maybe in a full 82 game season, which is not half bad for $4.5 million a season. Same with Jaden Schwartz, consistently a 20 goal scorer. I think he's had 5 20 goal seasons in his career, but he got hurt last season a lot. Wasn't great for him. Wants to leave St. Louis and gets that contract for Seattle. But the jewel of the Kraken free agency was the Philip Grubauer contract. Now, funny enough, actually, there was a headline yesterday that probably scared some Kraken fans for a second. The NHL deemed the Philip Grubauer deal invalid. They did not approve of it because of the base salary in year 3. It is too high up in it compared to what the base salary is in year 1. This was a new thing in the collective bargaining agreement back in 2020. The salary in certain years can only go a certain percentage over other years when it comes to front-loaded deals, because they signed Grubauer to a front-loaded contract. So because of this, it doesn't mean Grubauer is necessarily a free agent again. It actually doesn't mean that at all. It just means Seattle needs to fix up the deal, which they've already have. I think I saw something saying they've already given in the paperwork to be reassessed. So Philip Grubauer is essentially going to be a Seattle Kraken. And man, what he does for that team in terms of helping the goaltending situation, they're immediately going to have, he was a Vezina Trophy candidate last season. Stats he put up: a save percentage of over 92%, a goals against average of 1.95. That is phenomenal. Even if he's just a little bit worse than that this season. Him and Chris Drieger being the backup now, that's a outstanding 1-2 punch. And even though this isn't free agency, so I'm not counting it right now, but when I eventually do a whole offseason review, which that'll come, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, because there would be more teams on both sides if I was including the whole offseason so far, including the trades here. With Grubauer and Drieger, they were actually able to get a future second-round draft pick by trading Vitek Vanacek back to the Capitals. So, you know, a little bit. You got a starting goalie who was going to be your starter, now is your backup, which is nice, and you traded who was going to be your backup for a second-round pick. That's pretty good, if you ask me. So Seattle, 100% winning in free agency so far. 100%. Next team I have, your Vegas Golden Knights, James.
There you go, baby.
I love what they've done this offseason. Not a lot of people are talking about it enough, and I don't know why. They re-signed Matthias Janmark, who they got at the trade deadline, to just a 1-year deal of $2 million. Exceptional for a guy who put up 8 points in 16 playoff games in their run in this past postseason. So I think that was great. I think he's going to be a key contributor there moving forward. And I think he, in a full season with Vegas, it took him a little bit of time, but he showed out really well in the playoffs. He could put up like 30 points or so on this team. Like, he could potentially be a player that Vegas, they look to try to get him down long-term come next offseason. The next deal that they had, Alec Martinez, they were able to keep him after trading away Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't think we'll have enough time to really get into detail with that this week. Maybe at the end of the winners and losers, but poor Fleury. Like, I really do feel bad for him. Vegas, you did him dirty. Like, let's just say you did him really dirty. So that was really screwed up on their end. But it cleared the cap hit. You take $7 million off the books. You're able to keep Martinez for a $5.25 million cap hit over 3 years. Very nice. Rounds out the blue line. Perfect signing. And then for backup, because now Robin Lehner is the starter, you signed Laurent Brossoit, one of the best backup goalies in the game, honestly. I really loved what he was doing for Winnipeg whenever they would not start Connor Hellebuyck. And I think him and Lehner are going to be very good right there. The Pacific Division is weak. Vegas, they only had to do a few things here and there. Well, I think there's one more deal I hope they make. This is a phenomenal free agency. Not a lot of people are giving them winner status. I've even seen 1 or 2 people call them a loser. I don't think they're a loser here. I really don't. James, you had something you want to say real quick?
Yeah, why are you so upset about what Vegas did to Fleury? You're a winner in free agency here, Jurg. He said he was coming to play, didn't he?
It just from his perspective, like, he wanted to stay in Vegas, he wanted to retire there. Someone in the front office in Vegas, like a year ago or so, like, they told Fleury he's going to retire as a Vegas Golden Knight, and they just ship him off. Like, that's all I'm saying.
That's sports. Be happy. He's on your team. That's it. Celebrate. You just won the goalie of the year.
I'm player first, so thank you very much. But hey, Fleury, let's go, baby, Chicago. Last Chicago reference for the show, hopefully. And my final winner is the Boston Bruins. So from a mention of original 6 team to an original 6 team that actually won in free agency, they did such a phenomenal job addressing the bottom 6. Nick Foligno, Eric Haula, and Thomas Nosek, all 3 of them on multi-year contracts that I would argue the Bruins now have one of the best bottom 6s in the NHL. Those 3 guys all provide something different, a little bit of two-way game with Nosek, primarily defensively. Haula, I think he could be a 20, 30-point player, and Nick Foligno, veteran, hard-nosed, collects some hits. Very feel-good story with Foligno, by the way. His daughter, actually, she had 2 surgeries at the Boston Children's Hospital to actually like ultimately save her life and for the Folignos to be able to have a family. And so that's one of the reasons why he wanted to go to Boston. He said it himself, like he's felt he's always had an emotional connection to Boston since then. So very feel good right there. The Bruins blue line gets pretty good with Forbert and Riley to matching 3-year deals, $9 million. And then they kept Taylor Hall, James. That was my big thing. Would Taylor Hall stay with Boston? He does. 4 years, $24 million. I think that's a really good contract for him. He put up 14 points in 16 games with them when he got traded. And in the playoffs, he could have done a little bit better, but still 3 goals in 11 games. Could have been worse. Could have, again, been better, but I'll take it, especially with what he showed in the regular season. And I think Taylor Hall is going to be a nice piece going forward. And because of that, Bruins are my big winner. Yes, they lose David Krejci, but at least he's not going somewhere else. He's just going, well, he's technically going somewhere else. He's going to the Czech Republic to finish out his hockey career, and that's how it is. But yeah, I have the Boston Bruins as a winner.
You know, ultimately, it sounds like my Vegas Golden Knights were the best winners. They were the ones you got more excited about. I saw the glitter in your eye, Jurg. You were just you knew it. You knew it deep in your heart. You wanted to make them number one, but you couldn't because you just knew I was gonna get too excited. But regardless, now that I'm sad, let's talk about the teams who are sad due to free agency because clearly they just weren't as great as all these other teams you just named.
So I have a couple teams here, and I'm going to just run through them. My first loser is the Colorado Avalanche. Yes, despite the fact that they kept Captain Gabriel Landeskog to his contract, which if we're going individually, he's a winner, 8 years at $56 million. That's a pretty nice deal for him to get in what is probably going to be the last contract of his career. Like, I understand the idea that people would have wanted him to stay with Colorado. I really, really do. But I wouldn't have been upset, and I don't think most Avs fans would have been upset if he had eventually left this offseason, really, because I just think it kind of felt like time. Like, this team, they need to address other contracts these upcoming seasons. I'm just not a fit. Like, I like Landeskog, don't get me wrong. Physical captain, of course. He's been the captain, I think, since his rookie season, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not his second year. Like, he was a captain at like a very young age of like 19, 20 years old. There's a very small list of guys who are captains before the age of 20, 21, and he's on that list. So, like, he's a good player. But I just think like there was room to let him go. They could have done more. They could have kept Philip Grubauer, who ended up leaving. And my thing is at a $5.9 million cap hit, how do you not do what you can to keep Grubauer? That was a massive loss. And then you have to overpay to get Darcy Kemper there. I just didn't like it, so I have to give them the loss there. And also losing Brendan Saad, by the way, that's a big loss for them too. I think Saad, if he had been able to stay one more year, it would have been pretty good. I think Colorado would have been nice this year, but losing him, it doesn't help at all. It does not. But a bigger loser than them, the Pittsburgh Penguins, this is simply due to the fact that that goalie situation is still god-awful. Tristan Jarry is not a starting goalie in this league. Casey DeSmith is a backup, which the problem is that in the Pittsburgh Penguins situation, he kind of has to be the one. It's 1A, 1B between them right now. Neither guy is a 1A. Like, it's straight up. It's pretty obvious when a goalie can become a starter. Neither of these guys can become a starter. So that is just a terrible situation in Pittsburgh right now, the fact that they weren't able to do anything. I would have given them a W, even though I'm saying this is free agents. I'd have given them a W if they had gone after John Gibson in a trade. Like, I'm just willing to do that for this team to actually get a starting goalie there. They're trying to be a contender once again in the final years of Sidney Crosby's career. Not looking like it right now. The goalie situation is bad. They have 5 defensemen with $4 million cap hits or more on the team right now. No contending team has that. Some may have guys at like 5 million. Some like have a couple guys at 3 million. No contending team. Not Vegas. Not Colorado. Not even the Montreal Canadiens, who made the Stanley Cup Finals, have 5 players with $4 million cap hits or more on the blue line. So that's just terrible. So yeah, Pittsburgh loser. And my last loser, the Carolina Hurricanes. What are you doing? Like, Dougie Hamilton leaving. I get it because ultimately they were only going to offer him $7 million a year, I think was the report that I saw, and New Jersey offered him $9 million a year. So obviously he's going to take that way more money with Jersey. But the goalie situation, like I said, I'm sorry. I know I said free agents. I don't care. You traded Nedeljkovic, great young goalie, for the fact that he wanted just $3 million a year, and the most you were going to pay him was 1.5. So you trade Nedeljkovic, you let Mrazek go. I think his cap hit this year is 3.8, and you bring in Freddie Anderson and Jonathan bleeping Bernier, I think, is the other starter. It's him or Reimer. I forget. But I confuse my past Toronto Maple Leafs goalie sometimes. I apologize. But I don't care which one they got. You are currently spending, I believe, fact check me here, James. I think the current cap hit on their goalies is about $6.5 million per season for the next 2 years. If you had kept Mrazek and Nedeljkovic, The cap hit between the two of them, based off of their deals that they signed, would have just been $6.8 million. That's only $300,000 more that you need to spend. By the way, Carolina has $11.5 million of cap space still, right around there. So the fact that they didn't want to keep the better goaltending duo for $300,000 more a year, it's an absolute joke. So ultimate loss to the Carolina Hurricanes right there. I'm sick of it. I really, really am. The Hurricanes, like, I always say this, when you want to take that next step, you need to show something in the offseason that's like, okay, this team, maybe they could take that next step, jump to that next level, and they are going to become, a conference final contender. No. This is the reason why you've lost in the semifinal round 2 straight years in a row. And it's why Tampa beat you in 5, and I think Boston, they beat you in 5 the year before, and then the year before, they swept you guys out the playoffs. This is why you lose so easily to those teams, because these kinds of moves just show me you're not good enough, and you don't want to be good enough at all. So, yeah. Ultimate loss, Carolina. Their offseason just really frustrated me.
Tell them how you really feel, Jerry. That's what I love to hear. you just hear the frustration in your voice. So, and Frederick and Anderson, because I can't say any of these names. He's making $4.5 million this year, and Antti Ranta is. Oh,
my bad.
$2
It's Antti Ranta, actually. Okay, I was horribly wrong by me. I apologize, Antti Ranta. But okay, he's a good backup. But again, you could have just kept Nedeljkovic. Like, this is my problem. You could have saved money. Like, I don't know, dude. It's.
I mean, they from the little bit I know, it seems like they're a good regular season team, but they're not a postseason team because they're not picking the right goalie. Because as you've told me many times before, Jurg, a goalie is everything in the postseason. It takes you all the way, like a Carey Price. So, seems like they just gotta go ahead, figure it out there in Carolina, but.
They're cheap. Like, this is the ultimate issue of the Carolina Hurricanes. They're a cheap team that they're only going to pay you what they feel you should be paid. And if you think you deserve more, they're just going to let you go. And hey, good on Nedeljkovic for wanting more and not, backing down and getting $3 million a year from Detroit. Steve Yzerman, by the way, he's winning the offseason. Good for Kenneth and his Red Wings. And Mrazek getting a 2 or 3 year deal with Toronto worth $3.8 million a year. Like, that, those are good contracts for them. Again, Carolina, like, you could have kept one of them. Like, you could have let Anderson go. You could have kept those guys. I don't understand it. They have a chance here. Tampa's, I don't want to call them weaker, but they're not the same. Tampa's vulnerable slightly for the time being. And you do nothing to try to challenge them. That's what gets me annoyed. Like, I think Tampa's, right now, if I had to pick a winner, I can't believe I'm saying this. I think Tampa repeats it, at least in the East already. They're going to three-peat the Eastern Conference.
They're three-peating. I said it. My Tampa Bay Lightning is going to three-peat. I said at the moment the finals ended.
At least the East. I can say this confidently for the East. They're three-peating the Eastern Conference, no doubt. Because no Eastern Conference team, aside from Boston, did anything to me that'll challenge them in the playoff series. They just, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I had such good, like, high hopes in this offseason. Like, some of these teams, it just gets me annoyed, bro. It just really gets me annoyed.
I mean, hey, man, it's in all sports. We've seen it everywhere. Just some teams, they never learn. Like, let's look at the Jets, for example. They were just stretching out Zach Wilson's contract for what, though? There's zero reason for them to stretch it out. Just, get the kid on the field, practice, get the snaps in, get practice going, because there's only 20 days of practice before the first preseason game. So by missing 2 days, he already missed 10% of his season in OTAs. So it's just it's in the culture. Like, look at my Mets. We got Kumar Rocker today. I'd be insane not to mention this. You got the kid who got drafted 10th overall in the first round by my New York Metropolitans, and unfortunately, they did not sign him. He missed the signing deadline due to the fact that there were some issues in his physical. Doctors had question marks about his elbow. It's some rumors out there. Don't know what's substantial and what's not, because they are just rumors. But some rumors say some teams did know about this, which is why he fell down to 10th. It makes a little sense, but I'm not sure. People talk crazy. But regardless, it's kind of insane that
you're telling me the New York Mets have the audacity to not pay the kid because he has like a little elbow thing, yet they're still paying Bobby Bonilla to this point. Come on now.
Whoa. First of all, I understand why they didn't pay the kid because, well, one, it was $6 million. It's a little pretty penny right there, but he wanted the full 6. If he wanted 3, then maybe. But the more important thing than that, my fellow friend, is we get they get a compensation pick next year. They get the 11th overall pick. So I mean, you save the $6 million and you get the 11th pick, so you get 2 first-round picks next year. How can you argue that? You know, I get the point. The kid's back in the draft pool. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were wrong. Who knows? You know, it's all questionable. Also, what I read was there is MRIs that go around pre-draft. It's all if you want to do it or not. Usually the top picks do not do it, but by bypassing these MRIs, all these MRIs get sent to all the teams in all the league. If you're going to be a high draft prospect, you don't do it because you just don't want your medical records out there.
Right.
You're, not only that, if there is a little something, even if it's not major, there's teams that are going to know that about you. And you know how sports is. You take advantage of everything you can.
Yeah.
But regardless, so it's for Kumar Rocker, the fact that he didn't do that activated this loophole for the Mets where they actually didn't have to, if they didn't sign him and he didn't do this, he didn't bypass these MRIs, they would have been forced to pay him at least 70% of his contract, no matter what, even if they didn't sign him. But due to the fact that he bypassed these MRIs, they actually owe him nothing, which is exactly why they get the compensation pick without having to pay for anything. Solely for the fact that if he wasn't, it's kind of crazy, Jurg, because if he wasn't as good as he is, he would have taken those MRIs and he would have got his slotted $6 million for him. Well, he would have not made as much because he got picked later, but he still would have come out with something. It's kind of a heartbreaking moment for the kid. You got to feel for him. Even Marcus Stroman said it. He actually tweeted out, which I'm indifferent about how I feel about it because, you really don't want to see one of your starting pitchers talking about inside, issues. You want to keep it all tucked in.
Right.
But I do feel for the family because you think you're about coming to some generational wealth, perhaps, your kid's about to start making $6 million out of nowhere. And now you end up with nothing. He's going to go back to Vanderbilt, though. He's going to show that, hey, if he could do what he did this year, which was like 179 Ks and like 122 innings, some ridiculous like that, under low 2 ERA, if not under 2 ERA, if he could come here and repeat that, he's going to go number one. I don't see how he doesn't go number one next year.
It's not a surprise to me, honestly, to hear that something in baseball regarding young players trying to get their money, like it ends up screwing over the kid. It just really doesn't surprise me. Like, again, this is for a future show that we're going to do this summer, but the idea of how many years it takes for a guy to be a pure free agent and not have to deal with arbitration and team control is the dumbest thing in the world. Like, some of these guys don't get to free agency until they're 29, 30, 31, and at that point it's like, well, I don't know if we want to pay you. Well, let them be free agents earlier. So, like, that's just, I have a hate-hate relationship with how baseball does a lot of its internal stuff, really. But when it comes to an organization being good, you know what is a group that is actually excellent with what they do, James? It's the Off the Ball Network. And of course, as part of the Off the Ball Network, we are here. We are just about ready now, transitioning over from our NHL talk. We talked a little bit of baseball just now, just a little bit to give you all a taste. It is the appetizer to the main course of today, which is when we go over the MLB trade deadline. We are going to give our judgments, see who got what, see who went where, and ultimately, just how the teams go out, who built up for a playoff run and a World Series run potentially, who ended up rebuilding. Confirmed a certain team listens to the show. And, of course, we could not do this. Of course, I'm pretty decent with baseball, and I have the Don of baseball with me, so this was going to be great. But we got to bring in a little extra firepower. We need to bring in a guy that knows his stuff when it comes to baseball. He's a big baseball fan. He, returning to our show, just finished hosting the Off the Ball Network NBA Free Agency Frenzy Talk that we had here on the network just literally moments ago. This is one of the best guys in the sports media business, has built what is a slow burgeoning empire. Think of Rome in its younger days before it became the empire that it was. But one of the best guys, one of everyone's favorites. You guys know him. You guys love him. The reason that we are here, the president of the Off the Ball Network, Chris LeBron.
What's going on, guys? Happy to be on. Hell of an intro.
What Jurg just said, it kind of hit me because he was like, the reason we are here. And you really are the reason we said it last time you were here, Prez, but me and Jurg would have never met if it wasn't for you. So it really hits when he says something like that. But we're happy to have you back for the second time. you were the first, and personally, I think the best getting to know you guys so far. Sorry, guys. Steven, you did great, but I know. But regardless, Prez, glad to have you back, especially after such a crazy trade deadline. I was just telling Jurg moments ago, I think it might have been personally the busiest and like the most transactions ever in MLB history.
It was wild, especially for my Yankees and all that. But, before I get into it, there was something about you two that I was like, I gotta put them together. Just gotta put them together. It just felt in my soul. I think I talked about it with the other guys, with Mo, Steve, and Jeff, and I was like, I feel like they're meant to be together. Like it was. I had to put them together, and then we got it going, and then it's been poetry in motion ever since. You guys have killed it. So, I'm not going to toot myself too much because you guys have put in the work, but I'm happy that we made it happen, and we were able to get you two together, and it's been money since, and you guys have been killing it. So, that's definitely dope.
Hey, you definitely deserve the credit for putting us together. Like it takes an eye, honestly. Like it kind of the same thing with sports. Like when it's that X factor, that it factor. It's like what makes you think like this prospect is going to rise above where you're picking them, and what makes them special, or what makes you think you can pick up this player and they'll do fine. Like what makes you think you look at two guys? It's like, all right, how can they work together well? And I like to think you honestly you scored a hat trick, 100% save percentage on a given game, hit a grand slam, everything.
I've had my fair shares of misses, right? I got some busts that we've had through, but I like to think that I have a solid eye for talent, and you guys have seen the guys that have come through the network, and we have a nice crew. But it's there's something that feels right, and I was like, let's see what happens, and that's all you can do, right? You just gotta see if it works, and if it doesn't, hey, it doesn't. But
you need to take risks. You need to take risks, Chris. Like in life, just generally speaking, you need to even if you scared, you don't know how it's gonna go. Just take that risk. Take that moment. Go for it.
This whole network is a risk. I took a massive risk. Like I was getting approached by other places that they had some sweet deals, but I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to just do my own and be my own creative, director and help produce shows. And I was like, let's just go. If it fails, it fails. But I know I'm going to give it 110%. I'm going to have a good team surrounding me to make this work. So it's, we're approaching 1 year, which is pretty cool. 1 year is, man, I didn't think I'd get past the first few months. I was still like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like trying to figure it out. But hey, like I said, keep surrounding myself with great talent, and it's gone great. So I'm always happy to talk Bunts&Bruises. You guys are on top of my Spotify playlist. It's definitely a must listen. I'm always listening. If I can't listen to live, I'm always listening to after or on the way to work. You guys have been killing it. So I'm always happy to be on.
And we always appreciate the praise from you and everyone at the network. It really does mean a lot. And we will always appreciate the chance that you and the guys, because of course it's an executive decision by everyone, to give us the opportunity. We always appreciate it. And, now we're talking about decisions here and, putting people together, putting pieces together, and let's go make a deal at this. Let's talk the trade deadline, fellas. So James, you are the king of this. I'm going to leave it to you. Point the right way this time. You begin the fire sale. There was a lot of deals, so we got a lot to unpack here. We're going to try to do this as efficiently as we can. I think we're not going to talk about every trade, obviously. James wanted side note. James wanted to try to list every single trade that happened in consecutively.
Yeah, I could have done it. It would have got a little jumbled up. I would have sounded like an auctioneer guy. I would, no, 5 over here. It would sound great.
I would actually love to hear you as an auctioneer.
It was wild, the trade deadline. Wild.
Yeah, so I really do think that we have narrowed it down to like the main moves that happen for the main teams as well. So James, I will let you steer the SSBNB into the night on what we're going to do here. What is the first set of deals that you want to talk about in regards to the 2021 MLB trade deadline?
I mean, we'd be crazy not to talk about the biggest deal that happened during the trade deadline, and that's Max Scherzer going to the San Diego Padres. Oh no, Max Scherzer and Trey Turner going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. The rich get richer. I don't understand how they do it. They just continue to make a powerhouse. I don't see how they don't win again. It's really, how do they not? Not only did they add Scherzer and Trey Turner, you got Mookie Betts over here playing second base all of a sudden like he was back in the day. It's
Seager's
insane.
coming back. They just got Seager back. Like, it's
exactly. So, and the biggest thing out of this is they actually kept Max Scherzer away from the Padres, and the Padres were just about a Max Scherzer to get back up into the beginning parts of the division. Honestly, with this trade, I think they might actually kind of be out of winning the division. Wild card's still in grasp, but the Dodgers just blew everyone past a mile. Right now, it's the Dodgers or Tampa Bay Lightning, where everyone's just trying to play catch up. What do you think about that, Prez?
It's crazy because it essentially was a 3-team race in the NL West. All 3 teams, the Giants, the Padres, and the Dodgers, were all in on Max, and all of them needed Max Scherzer. But I didn't see the Trey Turner stuff. Wasn't hearing a lot of Trey Turner movement. Because he just got COVID, right? So I was like, all right, he's probably going to be off the table. And I just thought if the Nationals are going to, just blow it up, I think they would. Obviously, they're going to keep Soto. He's untouchable. And I would think Trey Turner would be a part of that too. But they traded him to the Dodgers, and it was just like. And for the Dodgers, they kind of need it because, listen, the Bauer situation is kind of iffy, So, Kershaw is not Kershaw no more. You got Walker Buehler, who's a stud, but you kind of need a depth in the starting rotation. So to get Mad Max, like, that's absolutely huge for them. And then you add Turner along with Seager, and you got Betts, and you just an abundance of they got a squad, and they definitely are going to go in as the favorites. But that division is that's murder's row. Like the Padres, Giants. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a team that might win 95 games or something like that. That might be a wild card team.
They could be 100 games. They could have 100 wins.
Yeah, it's how good is in it. They keep playing the Arizona Diamondbacks. They can get to 100 pretty quick.
Yeah, and Colorado.
They've lost like 20 in a row.
Speaking of Colorado, let's talk about the moves Colorado made. Wait, they made none, which makes 0 sense. I don't understand why.
The Story thing was something like, I know the Yankees were in on him and a few teams, and it would make sense to get rid of him. He's a free agent. Mm-hmm. Why not unload him? So now you're going to lose him for nothing because he's not coming back. So I didn't get that, why they didn't unload. I know John Gray was another one that
and it was almost a done deal, I think, John Gray, too. I forgot who it was. It was Cincinnati, perhaps?
Yeah,
it was
something like that. But I don't know with them. I mean, it didn't make sense what they were doing. But, Story, from everyone who's saying, is like, Story's going to be gone. He's he's going to be gone and it just didn't happen. It doesn't. And I know he's not happy about it.
Oh, for sure.
He's not.
The only reason he could semi be happy is he's still in Colorado, which will help pad his stats, even though he's not having a great year right now. It's because the bigger reason he's not happy about it is because if a team traded for him, he would have had all the leverage in the world to push for as much as high that contract he really wanted. Yep. But now that nobody traded for him, if he doesn't pick it up in this second half of the season, his value is looking at an all-time low. I mean, there's going to be someone who's going to pay for it. But realistically, it's like, why am I going to pay all these prospects and then have to extend you to this huge contract when I could just wait for you to hit free agency? So maybe the Colorado Rockies just weren't getting great deals, but still, with him becoming a free agent, you kind of take whatever you could get at that point.
Right. That's what I say. Like, you're not retaining him. You're not bringing him back, most likely. So why not? Hey, just get whatever you can, But I don't know. Maybe they were just shooting for the moon, and that's what they wanted, and they had their price, and if no one obliged to it, they weren't going to get it. So, but they have him, and all he can do is, play better baseball in the second half. Like you said, Bars, he didn't have a great first half, and just to prove people that he's not a Coors Field guy, because that's always going to be the thing. We saw with Arenado, people thinking but obviously he's a platinum, Gold Glover. Mm-hmm. So he's more than just. But we see with DJ LeMahieu, right? He went to the Yankees. People were like, shown. Now this year, not the best year for DJ, but he's shown the last 2 years that he's been more than just a product of Coors Field and got a nice contract. But
It was almost
the
the AL
smart thing
MVP.
is
Like,
that-
he was an MVP candidate. So
yeah, he was an MVP candidate. Yeah, it's just but I didn't get the story. I didn't want to do, but he's still there. So rack up. Might as well get play good baseball and make sure get your money up in the offseason because it's a stacked shortstop class.
right. They should have given the Dodgers a call to see if they were going to be willing to pay
They love
anything at this
shortstops.
point.
They don't care if you have two. Like when they have Machado, right? They didn't care if you have a shortstop with Seager. Like I feel bad for Seager. Seager's like, what's going on? I play shortstop. Like,
He's had so many injury issues. Like you really do feel bad for the guy. By the way, really quick, just to kind of put the finishing touches when it comes to that whole Dodgers conversation. In that trade specifically, they give up Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray, who were their top 2 prospects in the system, and also 2 other pretty good players. Another pitcher was sent the other way, and Donovan Casey ended up being sent to the Nationals. So pretty good haul right there by the Nats when it comes to that. And they had traded Kyle Schwarber to the Boston Red Sox for Aldo Ramirez, a 20-year-old right-handed pitcher as well. So pretty good, honestly, by the Nats to replenish things. I wanted to tell you, Chris, I think we can confirm that a professional sports team definitely listens to the podcast because me and James have been tuned in for weeks that the Nationals have the pieces here. Obviously, Soto stays. We kind of thought Trey Turner would stay, but so be it. He got moved. But like they have the pieces there. There's still Soto, Strasburg. Like people will still come to watch, but then you could replenish. We've been saying that for weeks now, and clearly Nats management agrees with us. So like, I mean, I'm still waiting on the DC area call. I think James may have gotten it. So poor me. But the Nats are doing a pretty good job with their rebuilding or retooling.
Yeah, they are. It's just crazy. Like just a few years ago, this team was on top of the world and world champions, and now they're retooling. Yeah. But kudos to them for realizing that, right? They're not just still falling in that couple years ago. They're world champions. Yeah. They understand that, we haven't been good. We weren't good last year, but we don't have the roster to compete. So to realize, hey, let's just see what we can get. And it's tough training Max Scherzer because he's been such a vital point to their success throughout the years. But they've shown, I mean, they lost Bryce, that was huge for them, so they've shown that they're willing to do that. So, they have Juan Soto, who's an excellent piece, to build around. And I think they can make this a quick turnaround. Obviously they might not be competitive, very competitive, in the near future, but in a few years they could retool and get back to being, a competitive team. So
Josiah Gray is a heck of a pickup.
Yeah.
He's quite the pickup. So I gotta say the Nats, for what they did, ended up doing pretty good for themselves. On that. And the Dodgers, of course, they picked up those 2. Kind of poor Danny Duffy. He thought he was going to be the big trade acquisition by the Dodgers. Really, like, just we're not going to touch too much on this, but like, just a lot of relief pitchers got moved throughout the days going up to the deadline. The Astros made a couple trades for some relief pitching. The Atlanta Braves got 1 or 2 relief pitchers on the roster as well as some hitting. The Cardinals went the old man route with J. Happ and John Lester, and the Giants as well. Tony Watson for them, and the Padres, Daniel Hudson. So just a lot of teams loading up on relief pitchers, guys, when you look at it. And it kind of makes sense to an extent. Like, James, Bars, this. You need relief pitching come the playoffs because starters don't go. I think we've spoken about this on the show before. Starters don't go 7-8 anymore. They go 5 or 6 and then straight to the bullpen.
You can never have too many pitchers, whether it be starting pitchers, whether it be relief pitchers. You can never have too many arms on your team whatsoever, because arms are the quickest things to go. They're kind of like the running backs of baseball, because you're just throwing, especially nowadays, you're just throwing so hard consistently. Let's look at Jacob deGrom. He was throwing 23 pitches like at 100 miles per hour straight. And all these MRIs are saying there's no ligament damage, tendon damage, or nothing. It's just he's throwing so hard, his body's telling him like, yo, we got to chill a little bit. So, you need more arms and you need to spread these innings out, because if not, you're going to run these guys real quick. And when your arms are tired going into the postseason, sorry, Prez, I got to mention it, but let's look at the Yankees. The Yankees bullpen arms last year, they were tired going deep into the bullpen, and that was ultimately their downfall, because you can't trust 3 guys to be 100% every game. That's the biggest issue right there when you have to trust so many bullpen arms, because you're trusting 3 individual guys to finish those last 3 innings. and hoping that they're playing the best baseball when realistically a pitcher is always going to have a bad day. It's just hopefully you can catch it before it gets worse.
Yeah, I mean, and the DeGrom stuff is, so I'm like, how does he keep throwing so hard and like his arm's not falling off? Because I think he has the most 100-mile-per-hour pitches in baseball, and it's not even close.
Yeah, he's beating everybody by like almost double the amount.
Yeah, he's so far ahead of everyone, but like you need pitchers, and the relief pitchers are probably just as important as have they been, ever, because like you said, guys go 4 or 5 innings, max. Like, and there's no guys complete. Like I have fantasy baseball league, and I had a whole week, 2 weeks, and no complete games by either one of us. None. No complete games. It's like, wow, like it's just crazy how much baseball's changed where you need it, you need that bullpen. So and bullpen relief is like shooters in the NBA, right? Shooting. And Jurg, we just talk about free agency, how we're seeing shooters getting $90 million, right? It's crazy, but it's a premium. People like teams really value shooting.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with baseball with relievers. Teams need relievers. They need to have, a whole like 10, 11 relievers in the bullpen because guys just don't go, they're not going 6, 7, 8, 9 strong. It's 5 and let's go to the bullpen. It's crazy how it's changed.
And quite a few of those relievers can go like, guys going 5, 6, they could go, some of those relievers can go like 3 innings if need be. And kind of like you said, a lot of them can pitch these 95-mile-an-hour fastballs now, like 89 curve, just the pitching velocity, the speed and all that is just so different nowadays. It really just goes to show the evolution of baseball. Like, and this is like, it's kind of interesting to see it. Of course, that's a conversation for another time, but just like the evolution of baseball. Again, like I've spoken about this, like me and James have touched on it, Prez. Like we always talk about the evolution in football and the evolution in basketball. Like baseball, I don't think is a sport that gets enough of that evolution talk because literally like these guys are so different now. Like you were lucky to have one relief pitcher that could throw like in the mid to high 90s, like if they could do that. Nowadays, like kind of like what we said, when we need 10 relievers sometimes on a team, half those guys can go in the 90s with their best stuff. So it's just a crazy thing to see. And it's not a surprise that a lot of these, top tier teams are stocking up on that because come the postseason, like, hey, you don't know what the situation could be. If your starter, like we said, like guys don't go deep, but if your starter has an off night, they have they can only go 3 innings somehow, or they start to feel something, maybe off in the shoulder and the manager doesn't want to risk it. Like, hey, bullpen game, which I think that's also been a more common thing in recent years, the bullpen game. The Brewers tried to do some funny stuff with that game 6 a couple years ago against the Dodgers. They got smacked in that game, then smacked in that game 7. So, hey, Milwaukee, that the sins of the past, I think people learn from that. But, of course, we talk about, the big moves in the NL West. We're going to stay in the NL really fast, but we're going to dive a little bit into the AL because, there 2 New York teams really, really made some moves during this deadline, and both of them were the benefactors, and of course the team from the NL West was as well, by a certain team in the middle of America, just absolutely blowing the team to King to Ka and back. And this is what I want Portland to do in the NBA. This is what I want teams to do when it's time. We talked about the Nationals not living in their glory days, which was smart. Thank you, Washington. Again, we thank you for the listens to the show. But the Chicago Cubs fully tore everything down. They burned it all down to the ground. So I'm just going to run through these trades really fast, and we're going to, however we want to attack it, we'll go from there, guys. But Anthony Rizzo, this season had 14 homers for the team up to that point. Traded to the New York Yankees for Alexander Vizcaino and Calvin Alcantara. Pretty good return for the Cubs. Javier Baez and Trevor Williams, funny enough, were sent to the New York Metropolitans for, this is the main guy, Pete Crow Armstrong. I'll let James talk about, say whatever about him when it comes to picking apart that deal. Chris Bryant was sent over to the San Francisco Giants for Caleb Killian and Alexander Canario. And then something that it really got overshadowed by all these deals. It was Craig Kimbrell being moved. He doesn't have to go that far, though. He's just going to the other side of Chicago. The Chicago White Sox made a deal for him, trading 2 prospects as well. So just complete teardown. Chef's kiss. I love to see it by what the Cubs did. So, fellas, we're going to take it from here. James, we could go in whatever direction you want when it comes to breaking down these deals. But, hey, Chicago Cubs, we talked about it. They finally did it. That roster from 2016 is no more.
It's actually kind of sad when you really think about it because, like, you look at all these guys, all 3 of them, the big names, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and Javi Baez, all three of them hit a home run on their first day with their new teams, which is kind of just insane. Like, I don't think that's ever, once again, a new stat in the history of MLB. I don't think that's ever happened the same way. It's just been the craziest trade deadline. And it's kind of sad because even if you weren't a Chicago fan, you were a fan of one of those teams back in 2015 or 2016, when it was Cleveland and Chicago, and neither team had won for God knows how many years, 60 plus years, whatever it was.
108 for the Cubs and like 75 for Cleveland.
Exactly. And so, like, you were picking one of these underdog teams to win the championship, and like the Cubs, they were just a fun team to watch, man. That team was great. Literally, just all the personalities, the talent on that team. It's kind of upsetting they really let them down, and just they weren't able to pull another run. And that's more due to the pitching. We're not gonna get deep into this. We can talk about it in another episode, but it's sad to see, but it's exciting to see because all these players were kind of, I don't want to say playing bad because you had Chris Bryant who was on fire, but they were in a little slump. They weren't playing their best abilities, but now they're on their new team, and as we've seen with these home runs, it might be too quick to tell, but it looks like all these players got rejuvenated because they could see, all right, I'm part of a winning team again. Let's see what I can bring to this team, especially since I already know that championship mentality.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think, obviously, I'm a Yankees fan. I'm always going to rock with the Yankees, but it's like 2016 with the Cubs. I think a lot of people were rooting for the Cubs to finally do it. And they were down 3-1 that series too. So it was like, they got so close and yet so far, and they come back and they win.
That was arguably, sorry to interrupt you, Chris. That was arguably, from a memory of all the World Series I've ever watched, that was the best World Series I've ever seen. And I think that multiple people, even people who watched like back in the 70s and all that, would say the same thing.
That Game 7 going to extras, that's
the Rajay Davis home run off Chapman. It's like it just, everything about that. Even if you weren't a Cubs fan or an Indians fan, you were on your toes because you were like, where is this game going? Like it was, and then the rain delay, it was just like, it was a crazy game. Like, and it's what you want in a Game 7, in a 7-game series, Game 7 between two teams. Like we mentioned before, one team hasn't won a championship in a century, another one hasn't won in 3/4 of a century, and it's like only one of these teams is ending a curse, right?
That's 200 years of sadness in one World Series.
It's a lot of, and like the Cubs, all the heartbreak the Cubs have been through, and then the Indians have just as much heartbreak as the Cubs do. Like they've had some heartbreaking Game 7 against the Marlins in '97. Like, you know, Jose Mesa giving up the base hit to forgot the guy's name. They got the hit, but it was just but it's just crazy how it's over. Yeah. You know, when because we heard because we've been hearing this about for a little bit, like they might blow it up, and you're like, okay, when is it going to happen? They still keep it on Chris Bryant. You know, he was an MVP, 2015, 2016, you know, and he had some down years, and then this year playing well. Rizzo is just like, you know, it was solid, and Baez is, you know, a great player himself, and you know, can be one of the faces. Like he's such an energetic player, and you know, I remember the tag where he had in the World Baseball Classic, you know, when Yadier threw him and he pointing at Yadi while he's tagging, and like he's such a great player to have, and it's over. Yeah. It's officially over. Like, and it's just like, and that's what happens when you go all in to try to win a championship, because they traded for Chapman mid-season from the Yankees. They gave away Gleyber Torres, right? That was one of the top prospects, either 1 or 2 in the whole farm system, in the whole, you know, of all baseball, you know, and they just made a lot of moves to win a championship, and it just felt like they went on, they win their championship, but it's like it came with a price. Right. That the next few years we're going to be struggling, and the next year I think they got to the NLCS, and then each year it just got worse and worse and worse, and then it's just like, all right, you just got to blow it up. And Chris Bryant is a free agent. Javi's a free agent. I think Rizzo. I don't know if Rizzo's a free agent too.
He might be,
Rizzo's a free agent.
It just, you had to just finally blow it. And I know they had Chris Bryant getting a phone call while he was still in his Cubs gear, and it's like, wow, it's over. And like it's emotional, and it was like, wow, that's sad. Like spend your whole career, you get drafted top 5 by them, and you win a champion. Like, like I'm not a big Joe Buck fan, but like that call to me is the best call ever. Like, Bryant to Rizzo, the Cubs win the World Series. Like, it's like, wow, like, but it came at a price. And listen, I know people like, oh, they shouldn't have done all that. It's like, you guys won a world championship, and now you just got to retool and figure this out and try to get back to the World Series. But it's crazy how, and then they all hit a home run their first. I mean, watching Rizzo, that curveball hanging, and he just takes that to deep to right field was great. And he's so infectious, and I think that's what the Yankees needed. They needed some life. It felt like they were so dead. And the Yankees have kind of been like that for a little bit, and it just finally he added what he added to the Cubs, why he was such a big factor, and to me that was very important. And Javi's going to do the same thing with the Mets.
Oh yeah,
Mets fans are going to love Javi.
I'm excited. Him and Lindor together.
Yeah, you already love him. Like he's going to bring so much energy for them, and then for the Giants with Chris Bryant, that he's going to add a lot of value to him with his bat. All good moves by all those teams. But it's just sad that it's an end of an era for the Chicago Cubs, and we'll see what they do. But good moves by the teams that picked them up. Like I love the Rizzo move already. Like he might be my favorite Yankee already. Like he just brings so much energy and playful, and like it is just you need that, and that's what they're gonna bring to their respective teams. And they're all in pennant races. Some good moves by those teams, and but yeah, man, the Cubs things it's over. Same thing with the Indians too. Like the Indians run, they're trading.
But their run was over a while ago, though.
That's true.
Because they were a much older team
when
they went to that World Series.
Over. Like when they traded Lindor, it was like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
And next is going to be Jose Ramirez and all that, but it's crazy. It's over. Cubs things is over, but it was fun. It was a fun little ride for them.
So a lot of the talk probably summarized there. By the way, also real quick, I forget which one of them mentioned it since the trade, but it may have been Chris Bryant. Like he was actually giving a lot of credit to the Cubs organization for sending the three of them all relatively near where like their families are. Like Chris Bryant with his family in the West Coast. Rizzo or Baez, like one of them has their family in the metropolitan area. Craig Kimbrell as well. Like they just a lot of praise for like doing right by their guys. Like I'm sure. They probably didn't have to, but they probably listened to all of them. It's like, where do you want to go? It's like, okay, if you want to go here, we will send you here. And like, that's honestly just good by them for doing right by their players.
You don't see that a lot because we know sports. We've seen some shady stuff by GMs and owners that they'll send a player to West, all the way out of, nowhere, and it's like, it's not fair. And like, it sucks. Cause I mean, that's the toughest part is, you're established in one spot, and then you have to move to an area where you're like, what, where?
Right.
I'm going there? Seriously? Like I'm going there? Like it just that's the crappy part. But at least the Cubs, they sent their guys who were huge parts of their franchise and helped them win a championship.
Yeah,
they did the right thing and put them in position. Hey, we're gonna try our best to put you in spots where you're gonna be on a contender teams. So you're not just going to another bad team simply because you got a good offer. You're going some places where you guys are going to feel comfortable playing, and we're going to try to do the best thing. So you got to give the Cubs credit for that, for doing the right thing. Because that doesn't happen. That does not happen in sports.
It really, really doesn't. So coming off that, we'll go through each of them really fast here. So when it comes to the Chris Bryant part, really quick, because of course with the Yankees and the Mets fan here, we're going to mainly talk about those two. But just really quick on the Bryant stuff, I think it was a great deal by the Giants. Just add another hitter into that lineup. Like you said, I think Chris Bryant bringing that championship experience to this Giants team. A couple guys still there from their championship years, but just another guy that's done it. Like you mentioned, Prez. Rookie season and a Rookie of the Year. And then the following season, he's the NL MVP. One of the very few players to win Rookie of the Year and MVP in back-to-back seasons by him. I think just another guy there. He's a solid defender. He's not like I don't know off the top of my head if he's ever won a Gold Glove, maybe, but if not, it's like still pretty solid. Like he's going to do his job for the Giants. He's going to help them try because I think for the time being they have a slim lead over the Dodgers at the moment. I think a couple game lead over them in the NL West, and I'm sure the Giants
3 up on the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, it's a slim lead. So if you're the Giants, you got to try to do everything you can, especially after they got Scherzer to stay above them. So that's what Bryant's going to help with that, as well as Tony Watson out the bullpen. Just overall solid moves by San Fran, and you love it from that perspective. But of course, let's move on to the main two. So James, we're going to start it off with you, and you can talk all you want. How excited were you to hear the news that Javier Baez is going to be in New York Met? And just overall, like, how are your feelings about the Mets? And, you know, what did this trade deadline? I think we could all agree the Mets are probably going to win their division. So what did this deal do for you? But I'm just saying, what did the deadline do for you for, like, you know, going further? Because obviously you want more than just the division this year.
It made me feel the trade for Javi Baez. First of all, I was on the golf course when I checked my phone. I saw it. I literally yelled. Some guy was putting like in the next hole. He was pissed, but hey, I had Javi Baez. I was wearing my Mets golf shirt. It was a great day, except my score wasn't that great. But honestly, Jurg, I don't know if the Mets have the division in the bag as much anymore because we're losing our pitchers left and right, especially that DeGrom hit. That's the biggest thing right there, and not only that, but you had the Phillies add Ian Kennedy to their bullpen, and you got the Braves where they didn't make a huge splash moves, but they added guys to their outfield and guys who could hit. That's going to help them, and it's good depth, and it's going to help. It's not going to replace Ronald Acuna because you can't replace Ronald Acuna at all, but it's going to come close to it. Right. They traded Adam Duvall, where when they traded for him, at that moment he was actually the league leader in RBIs. You also have Jose Aguilar, he's no slouch at all. I think they added Jorge Soler. They added a bunch of power bats, and they replaced everything that they needed because they not only lost Ronald Acuna, but they also lost Marcell Ozuna due to his off the field issues. So overall, man, I'm a little scared. Right. I'm happy though we got Javier Baez because if they didn't make that move, I feel like it was a move that it was kind of a reactive move. Right. You knew the Mets were going to make a move, but maybe they were looking at Chris Bryant, and then due to everything that happened, they said, you know what, Javi Baez is probably the better fit here because then we could push him to second when Lindor comes back, and he can replace Lindor not only as a bat, but he can replace him as shortstop, which is going to help us out, especially with all our pitchers going down because you always want that shortstop to be your defensive anchor right there, if not your third baseman. Real quick
on just because you're talking about it, this is the brief mention, by the way, for Toronto fans. Jose Barrios was traded to the Toronto Blue Jays. Pretty good. By the way, Minnesota, they got some solid prospects in a couple of other deals. Just real quick shout out to them. How did you feel? Because you retweeted it as well, Bars. It's like when the Jose Barrios like rumors were circulating, like when they were getting very up there. It's like Yankees, Mets, y'all gonna get in on this? Because it's like, especially with the injuries to the Mets, it really feels like Jose Barrios, he could have just been like a perfect guy to put there. He'd be the temporary number one with DeGrom and dealing with his stuff, but then he'd be like the number two or even the number three, like him and Stroman as the temporary 1 and 2 before you get fully healthy again. Not bad. So, like, do you think, I don't want to say this too harshly, but do you think the Mets will regret not, really swinging for the fences and going after him?
I mean, I think they're going to regret it, but at the same time, as much as I wanted them to make the Barrios move, it probably wasn't the smart move to make for them due to what it was going to cost them. But realistically, I would have gone for a bullpen arm. Brad Hand was out there. Daniel Hudson was out there. A bunch of other Joakim Sorer was out there. And what I'm more shocked is the Yankees made no attempts to try and get Jose Barrios because I feel like Jose Barrios was much more of a need for them than it was for the Mets. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Prez. When the Joey Gallo trade happened, I liked it. I didn't love it. I was actually a bunch of question marks about it. But then once they added Rizzo, I said, okay, I like it a lot more now. But they should have threw in an arm somewhere, especially Jose Barrios. I think the Yankees should have been all in on Jose Barrios once they found out they were out of contention for the Max Scherzer race. How do you feel, Prez? What do you think would have been the better – who would have been a good target for them to look at? If not Jose Barrios, should they have gone bullpen arms?
I wanted Barrios. I've been wanting Barrios for years. He's just one of my favorite pitchers. I would have loved him. It probably just cost way too much. They were probably auctioning for major league ready players. And, I heard a crazy thing that they wanted Dominguez. I don't know if it was them or the Rockies. It was one of them that somebody wanted Dominguez from the Yankees. And obviously you're not touching Dominguez unless, you're getting Fernando Tatis or Mike Trout or someone of that caliber. But I would have loved Barrios. I think that would have helped the rotation. But I could see why they didn't go after, because guys are coming back. Severino's coming back. So they're getting some guys back. So I could see, obviously you can add some bullpen, but like you said, bullpen is a premium. So you're paying a premium price. I go back to Chapman when trading Chapman for the Cubs. Like, we got a top prospect for Chapman for a half a year rental just to get him right back. That was a fleece, in a sense. But, I like the moves the Yankees made. So obviously adding some arms would have been great. But, I think Loaizaga has been really good for them, solid. So maybe they're hoping they could fix Britton, because Britton just came back. So maybe they're thinking that. And
Andrew Heaney as well, because they acquired him from the Angels. Like, maybe
Heaney's solid. That's solid.
I'm not sure how I feel about Heaney though, because he has a case of the home runitis where he'll give up. He tends to give a lot of home runs, and you get a little worried of a guy like that, especially when he's playing in the stadium that you can hit the most home runs in. I mean, I'm pretty sure all three of us get a home run at Yankee Stadium. We really tried. So it's, I was a little questioning on that move, but what I do like that is helping them out, and hopefully it continues to last, because this is going to be a major part of their run, is you got Jameson Taillon, who actually was low key. I think he won. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jurg. He won AL Pitcher of the Month or Week. It was one of the two accolades, but he was one of them. He's been great. He's been honestly the best pitcher coming for the Yankees as of recent.
His last few starts have been really good. He's been really good the last few starts. So he's a good pickup. Like I said, I think they look at their rotation. They're getting guys back, so why pay a premium for Jose Barrett? Like, it's going to cost you. It's going to be really costly to get him. And the Blue Jays gave up some nice prospects. I think they gave up one of their top prospects they drafted last year. So they gave up a lot for Barrios. And so maybe they just said it was just too rich. Like I said, they got guys coming back, so maybe they're comfortable with that. Like I said, Italians pitching well. Guys are playing. They're playing better baseball, so maybe that helped. That they just happened to start playing the way they should have been playing all year, and that didn't cloud their judgments. But I would have loved Barrios. I think he would have added to this rotation, but it definitely would have cost a lot. So maybe they just didn't feel like it was worthy to give up a whole bunch of prospects after just giving up a bunch of prospects to get Rizzo and
Joey Gallo.
So maybe they were just like, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Could be too much.
Pitcher of the month, by the way. You were right, James. He was pitcher of the month, Italian.
Yeah, he's been great.
So what I think is insane is we're talking about NL West is going to be a bloodbath over there, but realistically, we're looking at the AL East. It's going to be insane going down to the second half of the season, because you had all the teams aside from really the Red Sox. Even they added somebody, but Schwarber, who won't be playing for a couple of weeks. But still, you had the Red Sox adding a power bat. You had the Blue Jays, where they had a filthy lineup already. It's a deadly lineup, but their pitching was a little questionable. You had them add Jose Barrios. They were the ones who ended up winning the sweepstakes. Adding Joakim Soria, who was a closer for the Diamondbacks. Now he's going to be your setup man, if not just a regular bullpen arm. And Brad Hand, who most likely he's either going to be a sub man or the closer. So you had them bolster the weakest part of their offense. And they're right now currently a game and a half behind the Yankees, but you had the Yankees adding those two bats, and it looks like their offense is finally coming alive. You don't even know what to predict anymore, man, because realistically, we said it a couple weeks ago, Jurg. It's a 4-team race in this division, and it's even now, a couple weeks later, it's still a 4-team race, and it could be anyone's division. You feel comfortable saying the Rays are the best team in this division? But it's not by much, especially due to the fact that their pitching is weakened now.
Especially, Glass now being out for the year really concerns me now. Like, the Rays, very slowly, you're starting to have some concerns about them, very slowly. And honestly, like, for the Yankees, like, even if they can't catch up in the division, they slowly have a chance here to try to catch up to the Oakland Athletics, who they have 60 wins, the Yankees have 56. Like, the Athletics for a while now, I think, maybe I could be wrong, but like for a good bit, they've recently had like average stretches of play where they're going 5-5. Like in their last 10, they're just 5-5. I think a couple weeks ago I saw they were 4-6 in a 10-game stretch. if the Yankees could just slowly get back to this, like the Yankees have won 3 in a row, they're 6-4 in their last 10. If the Yankees can build these little streaks and the A's continue to play about 500 level ball, they could take the second wild card spot from them for sure. And then the first one belonging to whoever between Tampa and Boston. So it more than real shot. The Yankees, like after all these concerns, they'll end up making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, but I just feel like with the Yankees, and even if they do sneak into that wild card, there's still so many questions about this team going forward. And I know Yankee fans don't want to hear this, and it's the dreaded R word, but I've been saying that a rebuild is something that you might have to do. Hey, the Cubs are doing it. Nationals are doing it. I know that's not what Yankee fans want to hear, but it's just like we're doing these moves just to get by, just to try to stay afloat.
Mm-hmm.
So we're fighting. We're doing all these moves just to maybe, like we're 2.5, 3.5 behind the Oakland, the A's right now. Like we're gonna do all these moves and still might not even get a wild card spot. And then what? We got, a lot of the guys that everyone thought the Yankees were going to be pop and be stars. Judge is 29. Sanchez is 28, 29. Severino is always hurt, Glaber is, we're not sure anymore about him, what his upside is, right? We thought he'd be Javi Baez.
Well, if he could play 162 games against the Baltimore Orioles, he's going to be one of the best players of all time.
He's the king. He might be the greatest player of all time if he just plays. He might hit 70, 80 home runs if it's just the Baltimore Orioles. But it's just like I've been on this for a few years with them. It's like, all right, we keep losing to the first round or in the ALCS, and it's just like repetitive. Like this is the first decade. The 2010s is the first decade they didn't even reach a World Series. So it's like, and then this year it's like I said, I know people don't want to hear it, but that rebuild, like I know in baseball it's hard to rebuild. Like it's not like basketball where you get the number one pick and that guy's gonna be able to help you immediately. Baseball is obviously you could be the number one pick and you never reach the big leagues, and that's a whole nother thing. I heard you guys talking about, and I hope in the CBA they fix that because it takes way too long to get to the big leagues and then you get paid. Judge is gonna be 29 and still has another year of control, and it's like he's gonna be 30 by the time he gets paid. It's kind of ridiculous.
Dude is getting paid peanuts. Like he should have been able to be a free agent after his rookie year with 55 homers. Like how many millions of dollars has he lost because of how they do that?
I've been saying
so
this.
frustrating.
I hate the way baseball is structured, like the minor league system. Like it's too many levels and all. Like, and you saw how they covered the draft this year. They covered the draft as if it was the NFL or the NBA draft. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but they made it like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think they're finally maybe realizing, okay, we got to change the way the system is. But that's I could go a whole nother show. You could do a whole hour long about
that. Might be next week's show, honestly.
Hey, that's a great topic to cover because I've been on that. But the Yankees, finish off with the Yankees. Even with all these moves, Gallo, Rizzo, it's good now. But what about the future? A lot of their prospects, like Dominguez, right? He's 17. He's nowhere near ready, to be. And like guys like Debbie Garcia, who we thought had high upside, that high upside is not there no more. So it's just that word, man, the R word, rebuild. I know Yankee fans don't want to hear it, but if they don't make the playoffs this year, what are you going to do? Just try to sign a bunch of free agents and just see if that works? It's like, are you going to sign Judge long term? What are you going to do with Glaber or catcher? You might, if you don't believe in Sanchez no more, catchers don't grow on trees. They're hard to develop. There's not a lot of great. Yadier is still doing it, but he's
just the GOAT though.
He's a different breed of cat. He's a different breed of human. He's not a real human. He's just but it's still all these moves are good for now, but it's just long term. I still don't. It's going to be rough, and it's it's gonna have to come down to Mr. Steinbrenner to be like, guys, we gotta do it. We gotta rebuild. You know, the last time they rebuilt was 30 years ago. They haven't drafted really good. Let's be real. Judge is a first round pick. That's it. That's the only person they've developed. No pitching development. Everyone
They trade everyone. They trade everyone for the name still.
But they don't develop guys. Like, it's not like those guys even so that their scouting department is off because they don't. Even the guys they trade, those guys never pop. So like, you're doing a bad job of drafting, obviously. You know, so things have to change, or else they're just going to be stuck and just have to. Oh, we got to go get a Gallo type or a Rizzo type, a rental, and but it's good now. They're playing better. They're actually losing right now to the Orioles as we speak. But I long term, this isn't. They have to fix a lot because this isn't going to work long term. Like it's fine now, but you know, hey, I see the Cubs doing it. I see the Nationals doing it. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I'm all for it.
Right.
I'm willing to, but obviously Yankee fans were spoiled for the most part, and we're not used to that. But
they've been spoiled for like a good century. So to throw around that word, it's like it's like Yankees fans' grandparents are rolling over in their graves, like hearing that right now.
Yeah, but it's sometimes you want to get back to that 90s when you're winning 4 championships in 5 years. That's how they did it. Because remember, the Yankees weren't good for before 95. They were garbage for like the whole 80s. They crap. End of the set. So like, hey, sometimes you gotta break it down to get back up, and but that's just me. I'm all for it.
Our show agrees. Our show fully agrees with that. This is a pro rebuild show.
Oh, I'm pro rebuild. I'm with the Giants. I was like, let's rebuild with New York Giants, with the Knicks. We've done plenty of that. So I'm used to rebuild, and I'm ready for it with the Yankees, but I don't know if they're ready for it. That's the problem.
Bars, final words, my man.
I mean, Prez said it all. You got these rentals, and yes, it's working out great now. Yes, it's only been 3 days, and it looks like it's working out amazingly. But end of the day, you need arms when you get into the postseason. So all these big bats, they look good, they work good. It's just you're depending too much on the offense when postseason is all about pitching. Offense wins you regular season, pitching wins you postseason. And like Prez said, you got Anthony Rizzo, who he's going to make the Cubs possibly are about to have a la Aroldis Chapman over here because they just traded Rizzo. And rumor has it, from what I heard today on the radio, is Cubs are already talking about maybe when he's done this year, he comes back to Chicago because realistically, Rizzo didn't want to leave either. He loved Chicago, like we were saying earlier. And you got Joey Gallo, and yes, he has a great contract because he has 1 more year of arbitration. But after that 1 more year, what are you looking at? So realistically, if the Yankees don't look good next year, that he might be a trade candidate again. So like Prez said, it's a lot of the farm system doesn't look good, and what do look good, it's way too young, and the scouts aren't making the right calls. So unfortunately, yes, you got to pull that R word. You got to rebuild. As much as Yankee fans don't want to hear it, you got to do it. We mentioned that at the end of last week's episode, Jurg. We drew it in real quick. You hated me for the editing, but it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. This one, though, I'm going to talk to you. No, I'm kidding.
But regardless, speaking of the end of the episode, unfortunately, guys, for this week, this is it. There was way too much trade deadline stuff. Who knows? Maybe there's a Bars Talks episode, talk more about it. Maybe we just continue it on to next week because there is just so much going on. We only covered like half a day of the trade deadline. There's still like another week left to cover of just insane moves, but we covered the big ones here. You guys know where to follow us: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. Prez, shout out everything you do because as the president, it's the great work you are. Besides just creating the network, you also have the amazing podcast you do, the Off the Ball. Let everybody know where they catch you.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's always good to switch it up and talk baseball. I'm so used to basketball, and basketball's been crazy these last few weeks. And today, just doing the free agent show was crazy. But it's basketball's coming towards the end, But it's good to talk baseball and all that. But yeah, you can follow me Off the Ball Pod, obviously on Twitter. Probably the most active. Real LeBron 89 is my real. I barely use that one. I'm off the ball. Everyone knows me as Off the Ball. So I just used Off the Ball. Obviously, follow us at offtheballnetwork.com for all your sports needs. OTB_network. Edgar's been killing it with keeping up to date with these crazy trends. Literally 6 o'clock hit. Jurg, we were on 6 o'clock hit, and it was like boom, 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 boom. So he's been on it. He killed it today, keeping up with all the breaking news. But yeah, just did that show. So if you want to check that out, free agent show, we recapped some of the earlier signings and predictions that we had earlier. So to go check out that. Like I said, I had a bunch of draft stuff. If you guys want to go back to see what I got wrong, you could do that. But just make sure to go to offtheballnetwork.com. And we got some great stuff in the works as far as content. So check that out. But I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, we're always thankful. We are always thankful. You, Steven, Mo, just anyone, whenever you guys come on, it's always good. It's always amazing to talk with guys at the network. It's good to be a part of this network. This is the best 4-letter network in sports. We're going to keep pushing it forever. And last thing, James, of course, usually does the outro. I'll let James do the proper outro. But like you mentioned earlier, President, you came on, the Off the Ball Network 1-year anniversary is very soon.
And that's coming up too. Yeah. A week from today.
And there are special plans for that, obviously, and we can't wait to see it because you guys work so hard, like just to get to 1 year, like you said, it's hard to believe, and it can only go up from here, man.
You might see some waterworks. You might see some waterworks. Like it's crazy, a year. Like sometimes it hits me. It's like wow, a year, and then like just to see the growth. Like there's not a lot of other like independent networks that have grown this much in just a year, so it's going to be a good one, because we're not going to be talking sports. It's a show where everyone's going to hop on. We're going to talk about some of the best moments, some of the wildest moments we've had. Some of the wildest takes. Maybe we'll show Bars memes. Bars became a meme.
I'll try. I could try to get a little bit of audio of a little misstep here or two from B&B. I could try to do that.
We'll crack jokes. We'll hot takes. Cruz and his hot takes and all that. Mo and his wildness and his crazy stuff where he says about things and everything. But it's gonna be a great show. We're gonna have fun. Everyone's gonna chop it up and but it's gonna be a special day because I didn't think we'd get a year. I didn't think we'd get a month. After a month, like I said, a few months, I was like, what the heck am I doing? But we're going to get to a year, and it's gonna be a fun night. So I'm looking forward to that.
Speaking of fun, Bars, take us home, my man.
Man, I'm about to cry. That was just touching, man. But of course, once more, thank you for coming, Prez. We appreciate you. Thank you for creating this, as always. Next week we're gonna have our own big thing here too. We'll figure it out. We'll coordinate something. It's gonna be crazy, of course. But once again, guys, follow us, Spotify, Apple. Please like, subscribe, review, 5-star. Listen for a minute. I just want to listen, please. I know the voice. We're working on it. Maybe I'll make my voice a little deeper. But regardless, it's the Don of Baseball. It's the President Off the Ball Network, and it is Jurg, the Iceman. Until next week, guys. Peace.